Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Founders Crate, sponsored by Gaper.io. Today, we have Taly and Laura, the founders of Playing Date. Laura, Taly, welcome to the show.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so much
much.
for having us.
So, who wants to go first and give a brief intro about themselves? Then we'll discuss Playing Date.
Taly, you go first.
Awesome. So I'll go first. So my name is Taly. I am a lawyer by education, but only practiced for about a year and a half before breaking out of law and doing some legal operations before becoming a product manager at a legal tech company. And in addition to that, I work on Blink on nights and weekends with Laura.
Yeah, and I am also a product manager, and my career has taken me from operations to training. Spent a lot of time in tech and marketplaces, and I am co-founders with Taly for Blink Date, and it is pretty much the joy of my life right now, especially during the pandemic.
Nice, nice. Many congratulations on that, and hopefully, you achieve 10x growth. This is what we call it in startups, right?
Yeah.
May the 10x growth be with you. So,
Yeah, love that.
so a dating app in the middle of a pandemic. What were you two thinking? I need to know that thought process.
Yeah, so I think it's a little bit of a double-edged sword. So I can talk about the pros of it. So, we started thinking about Blink and building it actually right before the pandemic started. And so the idea was originally to have live blind speed dating events. And when I say blind, I mean quite literally blind. You can't see the people that you're going on dates with. But then the pandemic hit and we pivoted to audio blind speed dates. And we think the pandemic has actually been a really interesting time for dating because people are exploring things like audio dating, virtual dating, video dating. And I think that's actually going to stay after the pandemic ends because it's introduced a different way of getting to know someone that's a little bit more efficient, a little bit more sensible. You're not spending as much time going on dates with people that you ultimately, it takes a lot of time to get ready and go out on a date in real life. So virtual dating has made that a little bit easier and has made people think about dating in that process differently. So I think it's a really exciting time to be kind of introducing a new type of dating and a new dating app. And we are looking forward to seeing what things look like after the pandemic ends too. Laura, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
Do you want to add anything to it?
I think the only thing I'll add is I think the pandemic has made it so that people are also craving a different type of connection with other people. And so kind of what Taly was saying, and one of the really incredible things about the online dating world right now is that people have realized that, especially during the height of the pandemic, that, oh, there are actually other ways that I can connect with people. I don't always have to go and meet someone in person in order to vet them, and that there are other things I can do, especially if we think about how rampant catfishing is or robots on a lot of these dating apps. And so it's nice to be able to find a way that you can vet somebody faster without having to go through all that effort, as Sally said, getting dressed up, and depending on where you live, how long of a drive or commute it might be to get somewhere.
Interesting. So I hope it's not, for the lazies, right? This whole app.
It's not for the lazies. It's definitely a different type of dating because we do pair people up for actual audio dates. And so it's actually for people who are really engaged with the dating process, but like Laura said, are looking for a different type of connection. So they're looking for a connection to a real person. They're not looking to waste time by going on lots of meaningless first dates. And they're really looking for something a little bit more serious. So it's for, I wouldn't say lazy, but for more engaged, serious daters.
Yeah. Yeah, like if someone's just looking for a hookup, there are lots of other apps that they can do that on.
Yes.
And so this one is more for the busy dater, the efficient dater, people who are looking to, really make that next step and have that next meaningful connection that they can otherwise take, weeks, months, or weeks to months in order to get there with one person. We're now allowing them to speed up that process. So it's actually people who also care a lot about their own time management.
Interesting. So more focused, more refined, more fun, loving, intellectually challenging folks. Nice. I like that. I already love it, So how's the journey been so far? When I say journey, the product market fit, finding the early users, building the product, then scaling the product, initially you build it for like 10 or people, then hundreds, then thousands, then millions, right? So how's that journey going so far for you guys?
Yeah, so I'll just add to a little bit what I said before. I said doing this during the pandemic has been a double-edged sword, and that other edge of the sword is that it really complicates development, especially if you're developing someplace other than the United States. COVID has been a really challenging time in so many places, and so it sort of delayed our timeline in getting the app to market. We're really hoping to get it out sooner, but given challenges where our developers are, like we've had to switch teams, and we've just sort of kind of had to sort through a lot of those issues, but we've been able to use that time really wisely. And one of the things that we've been working on and is out there for the world to listen to is our podcast Date in a Blink, where we actually pair people together. It was a human matchmaker. It was me, for audio only blind speed dates. And it was a great way to expose people to the concept of audio dating. It's a great way to hear what it's like. Can you actually connect with someone through a 10-minute audio date, and understand whether or not you'd want to go on another date with them. And so it was a really great way for us to validate our concept, to get feedback from people, and to expose people to it. So we've been busy, despite the fact that the app is not quite in beta yet, but will be soon.
Got it. Good luck with that. It's for every startup. We work with multiple companies. From seed stage to even listed companies. So what I've seen, every startup has its own journey. They go through like multiple iterations. Even coming up with the first MVP, usually they go through like 2 to 4 iterations. What they want, then what the early users want, then what actually the market wants.
Yep.
So going forward, do you want to walk us, the listeners, how the Blink Date app workflow goes like? Do you want to walk the user, or you just want them to test it out themselves?
Well, obviously, we would love for people to test it out, but also happy to walk people through it because it is an experience that is better had than just listened to. So Date in a Blink, or not Date in a Blink, sorry, Blink Date, our app is fairly straightforward, and we do that intentionally. So instead of going through and filling out a long profile, you just enter some very basic information about yourself, some very, very basic demographic information, such as your age and your location, and what sexuality you are yourself and what you're interested in. And then after that, you put in your availability, and then our app will start setting you up for those 10-minute speed dates. Then you go on your dates, and they're 10 minutes, and in between your dates, you have 5 minutes to do what we call your evaluation. We're very into puns over here. And then that's where you say how you think the date went. And so if you think the date went well, then you move on to what we call glances. And if the date doesn't go well, you just wait for your next date to start. And so if it does go well, you go to glances, and glances are something that is really different for users to experience, because you're going to actually see 3 different photos of 3 different people. And the concept is using relationship psychology to say, based on the conversation you just had, would you be interested in this person? How about this other person? How about this other person? And so you're not selecting between these 3 people, because you can say yes, no, or maybe on either of them. And so if you and your date end up matching on both the Blink Date as well as the glance, then you move on to in-app messaging. And then when you're ready, you can share your phone number and take it offline.
Got it. So last 2 questions. So my one question is around, build as co-founders, what are the main 3 challenges? So you've mentioned about one in regards to the development that kind of like stalled the process, right? What are the other 2 challenges that you faced in the last 1 year that you would want to alert to or highlight to the other young founders that are starting out in the middle of pandemic, and what should they be aware of?
I think one really big challenge that we encounter from the very beginning is marketing. We are a marketplace ultimately, so we need both sides of the equation. It wouldn't help us if we had 1 million users if they were all heterosexual women. We really need that balanced market where we have the people in the right age groups and sexuality interests and so on. And so building that user base is really hard, especially when you're in such a crowded space where there's so many other options. You have to really rise above the noise and get in front of people and let them know that you exist. And so that's one of the challenges that we're facing. And Laura, I don't know if you want to pick a different challenge to share about.
Yeah, I will just add to the end on the marketing side, something that if someone is interested in the dating space, there are certain spaces in online advertising that are extremely restricted. And so one of the biggest barriers to entry, kind of building on what Taly was saying about marketing, is that we couldn't actually effectively do paid advertisements. So a lot of lean startups says, just take out, a $10 ad and see how people are reacting. And we literally could not do that until our app was in the Apple Store. Or either the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. And so that is a challenge I don't think that any of us anticipated running into, and made it so that we had to do and engage in many more organic channels to validate the idea. On top of that, fundraising is also something that is definitely changed during the pandemic. In some ways, it's been really great because it's a bit more democratized, especially Clubhouse. When Clubhouse was first out, there were a lot of pitching events and rooms that had a lot of VCs in it. And so you could get really great feedback that way. But now that it's become a little more crowded and opened up to more people, those rooms aren't as popular and the quality of them has gone down. But the interesting thing is that a lot of these VCs are still really committed to a virtual first approach into being able to engage with people like ourselves who are interested in, saying, hey, we are interested in fundraising and we want to get feedback from you and we want to, ultimately raise money. And so having all of these resources go online has made it very accessible, but it still doesn't make it any easier. It's still really difficult to kind of go through the fundraising process. And yeah, it's been really, really tough. I don't think a lot of people understand how much stress goes into the fundraising process and how much thought there needs to be on it and how much legal advice there is behind it. So I'm obviously always grateful for having Taly by my side because she is well-versed in how to navigate those spaces. And even when she doesn't know something, she generally knows someone or where to go to find more information. I'd say fundraising is also a really big thing.
And I think just to layer on top of all of this, and I think this is a challenge that a lot of startup founders have, or even before they become founders, both Laura and I work full-time day jobs in addition to working on Blink, and that can be really hard. And it's hard to know where to draw that line of okay, I'm going to make a leap and take this full time, especially if you have other responsibilities in your life and you have bills and you have a mortgage or student loans. So I would say, if you are a founder thinking about starting a new company, especially during the pandemic when things feel potentially a little less stable, it can be really scary. And so that's something that Laura and I work through in our own ways, but that's definitely something that people have to think about as they dive into their ventures.
So last question, where do you see Blink 3 years from now? I know it's a tough one, but it's interesting. It helps us, just the vision of the founders.
No, we have big vision, and we are driving. We're very mission driven, and our mission is to reduce bias based on physical appearances in dating and beyond. And so we're really looking forward to expanding into other verticals. Dating is the first vertical because it is one that we really can tackle as people who are working full-time jobs in addition to working on our venture. But once we are able to turn to Blink full-time, we have really exciting plans to go into other spaces to help people get to know one another without having assumptions color their perception. So we are hoping that will be in the next 3 to 5 years, definitely a long-term vision, and we're really excited about it.
Laura, do you want to add something to it?
Well, Taly said that perfectly, so I don't really have anything to add. I will say in the shorter term end of the 3 years, as opposed to the 3 to 5 years, we are really excited to be able to grow and scale Blink Date specifically into being able to have a really robust online community of people who are really enjoying the dating process. And we're also super excited about being able to put on live events to accompany these, and live just being happening in real time. So we want to have some virtual events and some in-person events so that people can not only go on the app to change the way that they date, but that they can have these other types of experiences to really make the dating process a more exciting process for people. But that's kind of paving the way for the 3 to 5 year vision.
Got it. Laura, Taly, thank you so much for being on the show, and take care of yourself, stay safe, and all the best with the Blink data. Thank you so much
for having us.
Thank you so much.
And we're done with the recording.